When was the last time you heard anyone mention KTM with the same reverence they once commanded? Almost never. And that silence tells the complete story. There was a time when this Austrian manufacturer didn't just compete in motorsports, they owned it. MotoGP victories, Dakar rally dominance for 18 consecutive years, and a reputation that made competitors nervous. The orange machines were everywhere that mattered. For decades, KTM felt like a guarantee. If you wanted racing credibility, you chose orange. The momentum was undeniable, and the brand rode it all the way to global expansion and billion-dollar valuations. But momentum only lasts if your foundation stays solid. Financial mismanagement crept in, quality control slipped, and the racing identity that once made KTM so desirable slowly became a limitation in broader markets. The name stayed recognizable, but the dominance faded. So today's question is simple. How did KTM rise this fast? And what pushed it into financial crisis? KTM's journey began in 1934 in the small town of Mettikofen, Austria, where Hans Trunkenpolz opened a modest metalworking shop. This was not some grand venture backed by industrial wealth. It was a practical business focused on bicycle and motorcycle repairs in a country still recovering from economic depression. Trunkenpolz was not chasing fame or fortune. He was simply providing a needed service to his community. The workshop operated with fewer than 20 employees, each craftsman meticulously hand-building and repairing machines in what was essentially a converted workshop. There was nothing glamorous about these early days. While Italian and German manufacturers were already establishing global reputations, KTM remained virtually unknown beyond Austria's borders. World War II interrupted Trunkenpolz's business, like so many others across Europe, but in the post-war rebuilding period, a crucial transition occurred. By 1953, KTM had evolved from merely repairing vehicles to producing their own, introducing the R100, their first motorcycle. This was not a racing machine or a luxury item. It was practical transportation designed for everyday Austrians trying to rebuild their lives. Early KTM motorcycles prioritized utility and reliability over raw performance. They were not trying to win races. They were trying to provide dependable transportation at accessible prices. This pragmatic approach served the local market well, but it did little to distinguish KTM from dozens of other small-scale motorcycle producers emerging across Europe. The company faced substantial competition from established manufacturers, such as BMW, Triumph, and Moto Guzzi. Those rivals had superior distribution networks, more advanced manufacturing capabilities, and stronger brand recognition. KTM motorcycles rarely crossed national borders, and international sales were virtually non-existent. By all measures, KTM was a regional business with modest ambitions, not a future global powerhouse. Yet within this unassuming workshop, something remarkable was germinating, a commitment to engineering excellence that would eventually transform the motorcycle industry. The trajectory of KTM fundamentally changed in 1964 when the company made a pivotal strategic shift. Rather than continuing to focus exclusively on utility motorcycles, KTM entered motocross competition. This was not just a marketing decision. It represented a complete realignment of the company's identity and engineering priorities, from utilitarian transportation to performance machines. The gamble paid off spectacularly in 1974, when Russian rider Gennady Moiseyev secured KTM's first 250 cubic centimeters motocross world championship. This was not just a trophy for the cabinet. It was validation that a small Austrian manufacturer could compete against and defeat the established Japanese and European giants. Overnight, KTM transformed from an obscure regional brand to a legitimate contender in performance motorcycles. The partnership with professional riders like Moiseyev created more than just publicity. It established a critical technical feedback loop. Race experiences directly influenced product development, creating motorcycles that were increasingly competitive both on and off the track. This racing ethos became embedded in the company's engineering approach, establishing an environment where performance was not just a goal, it was the primary focus. In the late 1970s, KTM introduced liquid-cooled engines, while many competitors were still using air-cooled technology. This technical innovation provided superior performance under sustained high load conditions, giving KTM machines a measurable advantage in competitions requiring extended periods at maximum output. The company was no longer following industry standards. They were establishing new ones. During the 1980s, KTM expanded beyond motocross into enduro and off-road racing, creating multiple revenue streams while building brand recognition across different motorcycle disciplines. This diversification provided financial stability through various market cycles, while reinforcing KTM's growing reputation for producing exceptional off-road motorcycles. What makes this transformation remarkable is the speed at which it occurred. In just 20 years, KTM evolved from a regional repair shop to an internationally recognized performance brand. The orange motorcycles became increasingly visible on podiums across Europe and eventually worldwide, signaling the emergence of a new force in motorsports. The foundation was now laid for what would become one of the most dominant periods any motorcycle manufacturer has ever experienced. The turn of the millennium marked the beginning of KTM's golden age, a period of unprecedented dominance in motorsports history. In 2001, KTM secured their first Dakar Rally victory, but what followed was truly extraordinary: 18 consecutive wins through 2019. This streak represents the longest period of dominance by any manufacturer in any major motorsport competition. The annual images of orange motorcycles crossing finish lines in Africa and South America became almost predictable, a testament to KTM's engineering excellence and commitment to off-road supremacy. The company's ambitions extended beyond dirt tracks when, in 2017, KTM entered the prestigious MotoGP championship with their Red Bull KTM factory racing team. This was not just a symbolic entry, it represented a direct challenge to established powerhouses Honda, Yamaha, and Ducati on the global stage. By 2020, KTM was not just participating, they were winning Grand Prix races, showcasing their ability to compete at the absolute pinnacle of motorcycle racing technology. This racing success translated directly to commercial expansion. KTM's global market presence exploded, reaching more than 70 countries with distribution networks that spanned 6 continents. Annual production volumes reflected this growth, exceeding 300,000 motorcycles by 2018. An astonishing figure for what had once been a small regional manufacturer. KTM wasn't just growing, it was redefining what was possible for a European motorcycle company in the modern era. The financial metrics during this period were equally impressive. Revenue grew from 1.2 billion euros in 2015 to 1.8 billion euros by 2019, a 50% increase in just 4 years. This growth rate outpaced virtually every competitor in the industry, indicating not just expansion, but accelerating momentum. KTM had successfully positioned itself as a premium brand that commanded premium prices, maintaining profit margins 15 to 20% higher than industry averages, while still growing market share. This premium positioning was particularly evident in KTM's customer base, which displayed remarkable brand loyalty. Surveys consistently showed that KTM owners were among the most satisfied in the industry, with over 70% indicating they planned to purchase another KTM for their next motorcycle. The brand had achieved what marketers consider the holy grail, a premium product that customers willingly pay more for and return to repeatedly. The company's expansion wasn't limited to organic growth. Strategic acquisitions brought brands like Husqvarna and GasGas under the KTM umbrella, expanding their market presence while eliminating potential competitors. By diversifying their brand portfolio, KTM could address different market segments while maintaining their premium positioning. At this apex, KTM seemed unstoppable. They had transformed from a small Austrian workshop to a global powerhouse with racing credentials, premium products, and financial results that suggested nothing but continued ascension. Board meetings likely focused on how to manage explosive growth rather than concerns about sustainability. The orange wave was cresting, and everyone, from executives to dealers to customers, wanted to ride it. Yet beneath this spectacular success, tension was building that would eventually threaten everything the company had built. As KTM's production volumes scaled dramatically, the first cracks in their seemingly impenetrable armor began to appear. Quality control issues emerged at an alarming rate. Warranty claims increased by over 35% between 2018 and 2021, while customer complaints on forums and social media created a growing narrative about reliability problems. Models that had once been celebrated for their performance were now being criticized for premature failures and inconsistent build quality. This was not just social media noise. It represented a fundamental challenge to KTM's premium positioning. Customers willing to pay premium prices expect premium experiences, and mechanical failures undermine the very essence of the brand promise. More concerning was the apparent disconnect between KTM's public messaging, which continued to celebrate racing victories, and the deteriorating ownership experience of everyday customers. Behind the scenes, financial indicators were equally concerning. To fund their aggressive expansion, KTM had dramatically increased their financial leverage. By 2022, debt-to-equity ratios had reached levels that made financial analysts uncomfortable, with interest payments consuming an increasing percentage of operating income. This high leverage might have been sustainable in a growing market, but it created significant vulnerability to any economic downturn or sales disruption. Market saturation presented another challenge. Having successfully dominated the premium off-road and adventure segments, KTM faced limited growth opportunities within their existing customer base. The company had effectively captured the majority of enthusiasts willing to pay premium prices for performance-oriented motorcycles, leaving little room for continued expansion without entering new, potentially less profitable segments. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed additional vulnerabilities in KTM's business model. Supply chain disruptions revealed dangerous dependencies on single-source suppliers for critical components, while manufacturing disruptions highlighted the fragility of just-in-time production systems. Unlike competitors with larger cash reserves who could weather these disruptions, KTM's leveraged financial position left little room for extended production interruptions. Perhaps most concerning was the intensifying competition. Japanese manufacturers like Honda and Yamaha, recognizing KTM's success, had significantly improved their off-road offerings while maintaining their legendary reliability. These competitors could offer comparable performance at lower price points, with the added benefit of established dealer networks and parts availability. The performance gap that had once justified KTM's premium pricing was steadily narrowing. Employee turnover at KTM headquarters increased notably during this period, with several key engineering leaders departing for competitors. Industry insiders reported growing tension between the marketing department's ambitious growth targets and the engineering team's concerns about quality control and development timelines. These internal conflicts rarely reached public awareness, but created dysfunction that further undermined the company's operational efficiency. As these various tensions accumulated, KTM faced a critical inflection point. They could acknowledge the emerging challenges, adjust their strategy, and establish a more sustainable foundation for long-term success. Or they could continue their aggressive pursuit of growth and market dominance despite the warning signs. The decisions made during this period would ultimately determine whether KTM's remarkable rise would continue, or whether they were building toward an inevitable fall. KTM's leadership faced a crossroads that would determine the company's future trajectory. Rather than consolidating their position and addressing the growing quality concerns, they doubled down on aggressive expansion. In what would later be recognized as a catastrophic miscalculation, KTM announced a €500 million investment in electric motorcycle development and production facilities in 2022, despite having limited experience in electric propulsion technology. This massive capital expenditure came at precisely the wrong moment. Global interest rates were rising rapidly, increasing the cost of the company's already substantial debt burden. Meanwhile, the motorcycle market was showing early signs of contraction as discretionary spending declined amid economic uncertainty. KTM was essentially betting their future on an unproven technology during deteriorating market conditions, a high-risk strategy that left no margin for error. Simultaneously, the company pursued an acquisition spree that further strained financial resources. Between 2020 and 2023, KTM acquired several smaller manufacturers and component suppliers, paying premium valuations that reflected peak market conditions rather than the approaching downturn. Each acquisition added debt to the balance sheet while introducing operational complexities that management struggled to integrate efficiently. Perhaps most damaging was the company's continued focus on premium pricing despite mounting evidence that the value proposition no longer justified the cost differential. While competitors introduced models with comparable performance at 15 to 20% lower price points, KTM maintained their premium positioning. Sales volumes began to plateau in 2020 and then decline in 2023. Yet price points remained stubbornly high, creating inventory buildup across the dealer network. Customer concerns about reliability were met with what many perceived as corporate indifference. Rather than implementing a comprehensive quality improvement initiative, KTM continued to emphasize racing successes in their marketing materials. This disconnect between marketing messages and customer experiences created a credibility gap that damaged the brand's reputation among its core enthusiast base. Online forums filled with accounts of expensive repairs and difficult warranty experiences, creating a narrative that potential customers could not ignore. The breaking point came in December 2024 with an announcement that shocked the motorcycle industry. KTM was pursuing financial restructuring and considering bankruptcy protection. The press release used corporate euphemisms such as strategic reorganization and debt restructuring, but the market understood the gravity immediately. KTM, the dominant force in motorsports for over 2 decades, was fighting for survival. The stock market reaction was swift and brutal. Shares that had traded above €90 less than 2 years earlier collapsed to under €10 within days of the announcement. More than €2 billion in shareholder value evaporated in a week, representing one of the most dramatic collapses in European manufacturing history. Institutional investors who had long championed KTM as a growth story now faced difficult questions about their due diligence and risk assessment processes. Supply chain disruption was equally devastating. Key component suppliers, having received warning about KTM's financial condition, immediately demanded cash payments rather than accepting the traditional 60 to 90-day payment terms. This sudden demand for upfront payment created a liquidity crisis that forced production halts at multiple factories. By January 2025, manufacturing had been suspended at facilities in Austria, India, and China, creating a cascading effect through the global dealer network. The initial financial crisis triggered a cascade of secondary and tertiary effects that compounded KTM's challenges. With production halted at multiple facilities, the company announced layoffs affecting over 3,000 employees across Europe, more than 30% of their global workforce. These were not just assembly line workers. The cuts included engineering teams responsible for future product development, effectively sacrificing long-term innovation for short-term cost reduction. Communities built around KTM manufacturing felt the immediate economic impact. In Mattighofen, where the company had been the primary employer for generations, local businesses reported revenue declines of 40 to 50% as unemployed workers cut spending and uncertainty pervaded the town. Similar situations unfolded in other manufacturing centers, creating regional economic crises that attracted political attention and additional scrutiny. Legal challenges multiplied as stakeholders sought to protect their interests. Suppliers filed lawsuits to secure payment for delivered components. Dealers initiated legal proceedings related to franchise agreements, and customers brought class action suits regarding warranty coverage. By mid-2025, KTM faced over 200 active legal proceedings across multiple jurisdictions, creating a legal quagmire that consumed management attention and financial resources. The brand reputation damage extended far beyond the immediate financial crisis. Marketing studies conducted in the aftermath revealed that consumer perception of KTM had fundamentally shifted from premium performance brand to financially troubled manufacturer. This perception change affected not just current models, but the entire legacy of KTM products. A brand that had once commanded premium prices based on reputation now faced skepticism about its most basic promise, the ability to deliver functioning motorcycles. Parts availability became a critical issue for existing owners. As inventory management prioritized cash conservation, replacement components for older models became increasingly scarce. Some KTM owners reported waiting months for critical parts, effectively rendering their motorcycles unusable. Online communities emerged where owners traded and sold salvage parts at premium prices, creating a secondary market born of necessity rather than choice. The crisis extended to KTM's banking relationships, with financial institutions reassessing their exposure to the troubled manufacturer. Credit lines that had previously been routinely extended were frozen or withdrawn entirely, further constraining the company's operational flexibility. KTM's descent from industry dominance to financial crisis can be traced to 3 fundamental mistakes that, when combined, created an insurmountable challenge. First, the company pursued overexpansion without adequate financial reserves. This approach stood in stark contrast to competitors like Honda, which maintained conservative debt levels and substantial cash reserves exceeding $25 billion. While Honda could weather market fluctuations and supply chain disruptions, KTM's leveraged position left no margin for error when market conditions deteriorated. By 2023, KTM's interest payments alone consumed 28% of operating income, compared to Honda's 3%, creating a financial straitjacket that limited strategic options when flexibility was most needed. The difference was not just in financial ratios, it reflected fundamentally different corporate philosophies. Honda's approach prioritized long-term stability over short-term growth, allowing them to make strategic investments without jeopardizing the entire enterprise. KTM, in contrast, bet the company's future on continuous expansion and uninterrupted market growth. When that growth inevitably slowed, the financial structure could not absorb even minor contractions without triggering a crisis. Second, KTM ignored mounting reputation damage to reliability, while competitors like Yamaha and Honda invested heavily in quality control. From 2020 to 2024, consumer surveys showed KTM motorcycles experienced 2.5 times more reliability issues than Japanese competitors. Yet the company's marketing continued to emphasize performance metrics rather than addressing these concerns. This disconnect alienated practical customers who might admire racing victories, but ultimately required dependable transportation. Reliability suffered. Quality control problems were not inevitable. They were the result of specific management decisions that prioritized production volume over manufacturing excellence. Internal documents later revealed that quality assurance budgets had been repeatedly reduced between 2018 and 2023 to meet financial targets, while production line speeds increased by 22% during the same period. These short-term decisions created long-term reputation damage that proved nearly impossible to reverse once established in the marketplace. Third, KTM failed to diversify beyond their premium niche, while successful manufacturers like Kawasaki served multiple price points. By focusing exclusively on high-performance, high-margin segments, KTM became vulnerable to market saturation and economic downturns. When discretionary spending contracted from 2023 to 2024, KTM had no entry-level products to maintain volume, while premium sales declined. This one-dimensional approach created fundamental vulnerability to economic cycles that more diversified competitors could navigate successfully. Diversification was lacking. KTM's story offers a profound lesson about the relationship between racing success and business fundamentals. Their journey demonstrates that performance credentials, while valuable for brand building, must be balanced with operational excellence and financial discipline. The checkered flags and championship trophies that filled KTM's headquarters ultimately provided no protection against balance sheet weaknesses and quality control failures. The company's racing DNA created a remarkable brand, but proved insufficient to sustain a global business without corresponding business acumen. Their experience also highlights that premium positioning requires exceptional execution at every level. Customers paying premium prices do not just expect superior performance. They demand superior reliability, superior service experiences, and superior long-term support. KTM's focus on performance metrics at the expense of ownership experience fundamentally undermined their premium positioning. When customers pay more, they expect more across every dimension, not just acceleration and horsepower figures. Perhaps most importantly, KTM's collapse illustrates that growth without foundation creates vulnerability. Sustainable expansion requires not just ambitious targets, but financial reserves and operational systems that can handle increased scale. The company's aggressive growth created impressive headlines, but it built a house of cards that collapsed when market conditions inevitably changed. True business resilience comes from building expansion upon solid foundations rather than leveraging current success to fuel unsustainable growth. Do you still trust the brands you've always bought? Comment with your opinion below and subscribe. What is coming next will change how you spend forever.